And in the very extreme case, you might get lucky and the doctor might actually fax the prescription over to the pharmacist. I kid you not, that is state of the art in healthcare. And we got to pause there for a minute, because if you're not in the healthcare industry, you're probably scratching your head at this point going, is that for real? Are we really that far back? Well, let's take a look. We do have some incredible islands of technology in healthcare, and I get really excited about this. Going around the clock, starting in the top left, we've got genomic sequencing, and that leads to the personalized medicine that we hear about. The next one is, quite frankly, blows my mind a little bit. This is a telerobotic surgery machine. It is in use today. Doctors can do remote surgery. This is called the Da Vinci. Bottom right, we have a picture of a cyborg. This is somebody who's got an artificial pancreas.
Adam,
yes.
I was going to talk about technology.
Yeah, see how long I can hold the role as a pharmacist. And in the bottom left, this one's also really cool. This is an advanced radiology machine. This particular one's an MRI, but going even more cool, we have PET scanners in medicine. You've all heard of them, and if you actually know what it stands for, the P stands for positron, and positron is antimatter. So in healthcare, we actually get to play with antimatter. So clearly, we have some really cool advanced tech in healthcare.
Back to pharmacy?
Back to pharmacy. This is what the world of the average healthcare professional looks like. We fail miserably at the communication technology. Pagers are still in use. Fax machines are still in use. Paper is still in use. And why is that a problem? Well, this one really, this exemplifies the problem of issues related to communication in healthcare. These are US numbers, these are current. Every day, 100 people in the US are dying related to the opioid crisis. It may end up on the black market, but it starts most often at the point of prescribing, and prescribing legitimate drugs. These numbers are prorated to Canada. It's a significant problem, and it's a heartbreaking problem when we really stop to think about it. And it's particularly heartbreaking because it doesn't have to be that way. We can do better. So why does this problem exist? Well, this is what the world looks like today. We have the doctor who writes a prescription. They may write it out with chicken scrawl on paper, or they might type it into their computer system and give you, the patient, a piece of paper which you carry around to your pharmacist. And again, the extreme edge case, which is about 20%, they'll fax it to the pharmacist for you. And then the pharmacist receives it. They have to manually transcribe it in, and of course, it's a waste of time for them, and there's errors in that. So what are some of the problems in this? It's guidelines. There's no way to educate and enforce adherence to guidelines for the professionals. There's poor oversight. We have lack of adherence and insights on the patient side. There's plenty of opportunity for fraud, double doctoring, polypharmacy, which is double pharmacy. You can take your prescription for Ritalin, for example, which has a high street value, take it to Kinko's, photocopy it 20 times, and then get it filled at 20 different pharmacies. This comes back to the pharmacists are somewhat in the dark as to what the patient's complete medication profile looks like. Again, they're missing out on the benefit of guidelines. And across the board, we have issues related to poor communications. So specifically, where do the errors occur? Well, roughly 40% of the errors take place at the point of prescribing. Another roughly 10% happen at transcribing, and the remainder of the errors are taking place at dispensing and administration. All of this accrues to a $21 billion a year problem in the US, and these numbers are somewhat old. What year are these numbers from, Nick?
2010.
Yeah, and so I assure you the numbers have only moved in one direction since then. And even more significantly, and sadly, this costs 7,000 lives a year. This does not include those people who are simply harmed but continue to live. It is a major problem, both financially and to our social fabric and social welfare. So Nick, tell us about the solution.
Technology. Let's see if I can do that without any help. I think I'm going to need some help. So HealthChain has said, you know what, it's time to bring in some technology, to bring the technology in. And there's, as you can hear from what Adam said, there's problems all the way along the pathway. So we're going to try to bring together, we're going to bring together a whole bunch of technologies, hence blockchain and AI, very appropriate for that. And we ultimately feel that right now, prescribing is sloppy. It's not the way it needs to be, and it's kind of a shame. And our feeling is we can bring some precision to that activity. Blockchain really offers an opportunity to link those various stages, to record what happens along those stages of medication management, and to share that information with a sense of security and comfort level that when a prescription is created, it will not be tampered with, and it will be delivered to the pharmacist as desired by the patient. Moving along that path, really, to simplify that story, which is usually a prescription that's carried from the doctor to the pharmacist by a patient, we're saying put that prescription onto the blockchain, get it being tracked, make it available for the patient to then, through the smartphone, provide it to the pharmacy of their choice and to direct when they're going to pick it up. And then the pharmacist gets to be comfortable that that's not been tampered with, that it's not gone to another pharmacy, or it's been only used once. They will then dispense it and put that on the blockchain, creating this whole link of a trusted link of information, and ultimately this provides safe and secure system that can also create a history that can be used by practitioners as well as a patient. Adding to that the capability of a smart contract, and we're really getting at the point where these smart contracts could be the point of the contract between the physician who is prescribing along a contract or guidelines and delivering that for a patient under a certain circumstance. As an example, narcotics are used every day to manage pain. But what happens is that the decision around what to prescribe is not always thought about as much as it should be. And that's been a bit of the history. The pendulum has swung to maybe over-prescribing medications. Right now, there's brand new guidelines that have come out about a month ago, but they're not readily available or used at the point of prescribing by physicians. By using the smart contract, we intend to make that information available to the physician at the point of prescribing, and also to the pharmacist. I can check that this patient is receiving their medications according to guidelines. And you add on to that a contract that says, if you're prescribing this way, the government will pay for that medication, or a private insurer will pay for that medication. Creating a contract doing things the right way. Patients will receive the medication that works for them and receive it in the right way at the right time. You add AI onto that, and then all of a sudden you think about that's for one individual, and you start adding on outcomes. Is that patient getting better, or is their pain being managed? And you think about 1, 10, 20, 1 million patients, tracking that information and updating those contracts. Drugs get onto the market, and there's an assumption that they're drugs, that these medications are going to work and be used the way according to those contracts. Well, that's not always the case. Medications get used for other things. But first and foremost, the speed of learning and updating those guidelines is way too slow. We know that it usually takes up to 7 years to get knowledge from research into the hands of physicians, as an example. So the opportunity is to use AI to really learn and improve those guidelines, and ultimately to improve the health and outcomes of individuals. So this is what HealthChain, this is the journey that we're under. And just finally, just want to leave you with some words of wisdom.
Divinely
Divinely inspired words of wisdom. And we can't think of a better business than improving the business of healthcare to be in, and we're excited about the journey. And so we'll lead you to the next stage. Any questions?
Just curious, where does the data reside and who owns the patient data?
That's an excellent question. Matt, you were standing up. Did you want to answer that one? Or you want me
It's slightly different, but I can, you should answer that, and then if we get into more security stuff.
Yes, okay. Matt's one of our genius developers, so if I answer it wrong, he's going to shoot me and answer it correctly. We are operating on a private blockchain. The rationale for that is governance. Simply put, we don't want anybody in the general public writing prescriptions. You need to be permission to write prescriptions. So it does reside on a blockchain, but there are some very specific controls as to the players and their roles. In terms of privacy, I guess the short answer is that it's consistent with every other health system that's out there in
Provincial and federal.
yeah, the ownership of the data at the most academic level is it's owned by the patient, but there are all sorts of different ways to look at that, and it gets into a much longer, complicated conversation.
Yep.
I would imagine this is highly regulated. My question is, what are your first steps in dealing with the government, and what are the first steps to actually launch something like this? And it's great we talk about blockchain, but it seems like a business problem first that's extremely challenging, let alone a technology problem. So just curious, what's your first steps?
The government is moving towards electronic prescribing. It actually exists in many jurisdictions around the world, but Canada happens to be a bit of a greenfield. That's a nice way of saying being behind. And the government is moving towards that, and it's really regulated by the various colleges. So we're going to work in parallel and alignment with those requirements.
So is your first step then, just for entrepreneurs here, is it building? Or before building, is it just market testing, seeing if you can actually...
No, the first step is developing the business relationships
Okay.
with the various players. Because really we have to work with when we talk about the islands out there are all kinds of electronic data sets, electronic medical records, right, on the physician side and on the pharmacy side. The trouble is they're not directly connected right now. And so we're bringing that connection.
Great, good luck, awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm curious to get a better understanding of the difference between you being a prescription facilitator, or I don't know, and you being just a medical record keeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. You're talking about a continuum, and a full medical record contains prescriptions and medical history, family history, lab results. You could throw genetics in there, etc., etc. It's simply just an exponentially more difficult problem to solve than taking one small piece of it where there is a current pain point today, pain for both the doctors and the dispensers, and a gap in knowledge. So there is a good opportunity to address that, and it is relatively self-contained in that you only have the two stakeholders, and they're motivated to see things change. And once we have that working and down, then a natural progression, at least one for us, would be to continue to add on more elements of that medical record. So I see a lot of hands. I don't know how many.
We can stay here tonight.
Maybe one more?
I've stayed here several times.
Yeah, so on that business question, you mentioned that having to deal with a lot of different stakeholders, the government, things like that. and it's a permission, it's a private blockchain. Who's the customer? Who's paying for this?
Excellent question. Yeah, so the payer is the pharmacy, and very simple rationale for that is presently the pharmacist has to transcribe the prescription into their system. It takes roughly a minute, and you saw that there's about a 10% error rate. That's using someone else's numbers. I think it might be a little bit high, but anyways, there is an error rate. So the pharmacists are motivated for automation, and there's hundreds of millions of prescriptions a year in Canada, so we can give them that automation and do it for in the realm of nickels and dimes.
Next question there. Last question.
Very simple question. Why do you require blockchain codes? No, I'm serious.
Yeah, no, excellent question. It's when we debated on that a lot. We go blockchain, we go traditional SQL database. The blockchain does provide a number of valuable things. It's a shared ledger, so you can take your prescription to any pharmacist, and doctors and pharmacists, everybody can see into it, and it's indelible, and with strong auditing and identity management. So there's some strengths there, but there are an equal number of risks. It's new technology, et cetera, et cetera. Where it becomes really valuable is in the next phase of our business when we turn on the smart contracts. Nick was talking about that and saying how we can use them for governance and for guidelines. There's some other really cool things that we can do with smart contracts that we will evolve into in the next phase of our business.
Thanks.
Excellent. I just want to thank everybody and our sponsors in ACM, Mars, Cosmos, and all the other silver sponsors that we don't really need to mention because they're not as important. What's up? Just kidding. I think you can see the list of the sponsors there. So I promised you a code, and that code is going to give each and every one of you that registered with an email to come here tonight. That email is going to get $300 discount. Now we're thinking that every workshop we're going to reduce to $300, so if you end up attending all workshops from now until the Global Summit, you might end up getting it for free. We promise we will not keep minusing it, so we're not going to pay you to go there, but we just get the zero and stop. So the code for tonight is 18189, and you multiply it by a number that Silvio missed 2 numbers, so you gotta like add those numbers. And if you don't remember those numbers, then it's too bad. Yeah, just kidding. So, or you can brute force it. We can ask many of the hackers to reverse it. Yeah, just put 1818 and 9. And by the way, Silvio missed 2 numbers. Well, the first one is number 7 when he's counting from 1 to 9, and the second, number 4. So, gotta do those things on purpose. Sometimes when you look at a cryptographer and they make a mistake, sometimes they're doing it on purpose. So thank you all for coming, and hope to see you in the next workshop in the Global Summit. Sweet.